Have you ever felt like law school admissions is this giant maze that only a few insiders truly understand? Maybe you've opened an ABA 509 law school report and just seen a wall of confusing charts and tables. Or maybe you've been mesmerized by US News Law School rankings and scared into thinking that a single number will make or break your future career. But here's a little known truth. ABA Law School 509 data is the secret weapon that almost no one uses correctly. Yet it's mandatory information that every law school has to provide. If you master how to read that data, you'll know which law schools are worth your time, how much money they can realistically offer you, and whether their graduates find success in your dream field. Whether you want a smaller scholarship or a full ride, whether you set your sights on big law or public interest, understanding these reports gives you a level of insight that drastically improves your chances. By the end of today's episode, you'll not only know exactly how to interpret that ABA 509 data, but you'll also be equipped to negotiate scholarships, spot red flags, and pick a school that sets you up for the best career opportunities. First, for those who don't know me, my name is Steve Schwartz. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and I personally increased my own LSAT score from a 152 to a 175. Now let's talk about why the ABA 509 data changes the game. We've got to go beyond the US News rankings. Everyone talks about them as if they determine your entire future, but that conversation usually skips over the fact that these rankings rely on weighted factors that may not align with your personal needs, like location, scholarships, faculty support, and jobs prospects in specific regions. For example, imagine that you want to practice environmental law on the West Coast, but the ranking system favors a Northeast school that barely has an environmental law curriculum. Rankings alone won't reveal that mismatch for you. Instead, though, the 509 reports let you see with your own eyes how many people get jobs in your desired region, what types of jobs they land, and how much debt they're likely to graduate with. This is personalized data that helps you avoid the frustration of picking a school that might look great on paper, but fall short in reality. Now, these reports are a goldmine of official data. Every single law school must submit standardized data on bar passage rates, scholarship distributions, GPA and LSAT percentiles, transfer rates, employment outcomes, faculty-student ratios, and more. And this is not marketing fluff. It's vetted, mandatory, factual information. Now, when you're choosing a law school, you want to control your own narrative. If you've been anxious about your GPA or your LSAT scores, you're not alone. But if you know how to interpret the numbers in those reports, you can make a clearer, more informed decision about how to choose the best law school for you. For example, you might see a school where you're below the GPA medians, but you can get your LSAT score above the medians, giving you not only a shot at getting in, but also getting significant scholarship money to boot. Now, of course, understanding 509 report data is easier when you know where to focus. Let's break down the main sections you'll see and how to leverage each one. First and most important are the LSAT and GPA ranges. These show you the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentile LSAT and GPA for the incoming class. Now, here's why this matters. These numbers help you gauge whether your stats are within a school's comfort zone. Schools do admit applicants below the 25th, but usually they will offset a lower GPA with a higher LSAT. So you want to create 3 school categories: reach, target, and safety. But remember that if you have a stronger LSAT score, that can shift a reach into a target or into an admit, especially if you align well with a school's priorities. Secondly is scholarship distribution. This shows how many students received scholarships or grants, and often a breakdown by the average or median scholarship amount. Now, here's why this matters. This is going to be your roadmap to figuring out how generous a school tends to be. Some schools give half their class major discounts on tuitions, others might be stingier. Now, here's how to use this info. If you discover that 70% of a school's students get scholarships, you'll know you can push harder in your negotiations. On the flip side, if a school rarely hands out big awards, you might allocate more time wooing other institutions that have a history of better funding. Third is bar passage rates. This section is going to show you the percentage of graduates who pass the bar exam within a certain time frame, often 1 year after graduation. Now, here's why this matters. This is going to be a clear indicator of a school's academic rigor and support systems. If you see a severely low bar passage rate, that's a major red flag. Now, here's how to use this info. Look specifically for your intended region. Are the schools there preparing students adequately for the bar where you want to practice? If you see a mismatch, that might be your cue to look elsewhere. Fourth is employment outcomes. This section shows whether graduates land bar-required positions, JD Advantage roles, or non-legal jobs. It often breaks down location of employment as well. Now, this matters because no one wants to be unemployed or underemployed after spending 3 years in law school. And so a school might have an impressive overall employment rate, but if those jobs are all in a region you have zero interest in, that high percentage won't mean much for you. Fifth and final is the attrition and transfer data. This shows you how many students transferred in or out after their first year, plus their overall academic attrition. High attrition is a major red flag. It's going to signal that the school tends to enroll students who struggle to keep pace or that the school's support system is lacking. A high rate of transferring out might mean people are unhappy or they're just using the school as a stepping stone to a higher ranked one. So if a school's transfer out numbers are exceptionally large, you're going to want to dig deeper into why. Ideally, you're going to talk to current students to get a more insider perspective because this may reflect a mismatch between expectations and reality. Now, when you're pulling together your school's list where you're going to apply, first, list your priorities. Write down your non-negotiables. This could be minimal debt, strong placement in a certain city, or robust clinics in specific practice areas. If you have clarity up front, that'll help you avoid being swayed by a prestigious name that won't actually suit your goals. Step 2, pull that ABA 509 data for your target schools. For every single school you're considering, download all those documents. I know it might seem like a lot, but trust me, those PDFs are your secret to making an informed, money-saving decision. Step 3, score each of these schools on your priorities. Make a quick spreadsheet with columns for scholarships, bar passage rates, employment in your desired region, and anything else that matters to you. Then rank each school by your priorities, not those of US News. You will then see at a glance which ones are hitting your sweet spots. Step 4, identify areas for negotiation. Where are you going to have leverage given your LSAT score and your GPA? If you notice a particular school gives out tons of scholarship money, keep that information handy for when scholarship offers roll in. If you can say, I know you often give out big scholarships, and I really see myself thriving at your institution, that's going to be far more compelling if you compare it with actual data. And finally, step 5, don't be limited by the numbers. Yes, schools value high GPAs, but they also value high LSAT scores. And so if you're below the GPA medians, highlight your LSAT score in those conversations because that's a better predictor of first-year bar passage rates, which will, of course, reflect well on them down the line. Now, I want to share with you some common misconceptions about ABA 509 reports. The biggest ones that they're hard to understand. Yes, at first they might be hard to understand, but once you know the categories, LSAT GPA, scholarships, bar passage rates, employment and transfers, it all becomes fairly straightforward. Second big misconception, schools fudge their 509 data. But because these reports go straight to the American Bar Association, which is their licensing or accrediting agency, there's not much leeway for misleading stats. And yes, some schools have fudged the numbers in the past, but they've faced serious consequences for those inaccuracies. So treat these numbers as being a lot more reliable than the promotional materials you might receive in the mail. Plus, these are the best that you've got. Now, before we continue, there's one more resource that can level up your entire admissions strategy. If you're aiming for a top LSAT score, or just one that opens up the floodgates of scholarship offers, at LSAT Unplugged, we'd be glad to help you out with private one-on-one LSAT coaching to get you there faster. Unlike the corporate options that throw you in a big anonymous webinar with dozens of other students, we give you tailor-made support for your weaknesses, optimizing your strengths, and boosting your score with practice strategies tailor-made just for you. And so, if you've been hitting a plateau or you're just starting off, working with a coach can make the difference between a so-so offer and a game-changing scholarship, possibly even a full ride. You can check out the links below to find out more and to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out in turning your LSAT journey into another one of our success stories. Now, let's talk money. With tuition at some schools skyrocketing past $80,000 a year, all said and done, It's no longer enough to say, well, I guess that's what I have to pay. The 509 data on scholarships can help you slash those costs significantly. Many applicants are under the misconception, though, that scholarships only go to people with near perfect LSAT scores or GPAs. But in reality, schools want a diverse range of backgrounds, experiences, and talents. If you have a compelling story, paired with an above median LSAT score, you could snag a major scholarship, possibly even a full ride. Now, when it comes to negotiation, you want to present strong evidence that you're worth the investment, and don't be afraid to mention other schools' offers. This can push a school to raise their own, but just stay polite, professional, and persistent, and realize that schools expect a bit of back and forth. But you do want to avoid the pitfall of conditional scholarships that require you to maintain a certain GPA. Those law school curves can be tough, and if you lose your scholarship, you might find yourself on the hook for big tuition costs. Those ABA 509 reports will show you how many students keep or lose their grants each year. You also want to look for unexpected fees beyond tuition like tech fees, health fees, and activity fees that can add on thousands. Factor all that into your total cost calculation. Now, law schools will also have unspoken motivations influenced by factors beyond just your stats, like regional pressures. If a state bar has recently implemented more stringent exams, you might see a dip or a spike in bar passage rates accordingly, and that can shift a school's policies around academic support, scholarships, or admissions priorities. Secondly, there could be shifts in the job market because when larger law firms reduce their summer hiring, schools might tighten admissions for fear of lowering their employment stats. That can lead to bigger scholarships for strong candidates as schools compete to boost their metrics. Finally, you want to look at curriculum and specializations. The 509 reports will hint at how many full-time faculty a school has, which might reveal a robust range of specialized courses or clinics. If a school is large, but the faculty count hasn't really changed, that could mean that you're actually going to face bigger class sizes and potentially less individualized attention. Now, going forward, while there are alternate tests in the mix, like the GRE or the JD Next, remember that a well-earned LSAT score is going to be the gold standard at most schools because it's proven to predict first-year performance and as well as bar passage rates, and it factors into the US News rankings. Secondly, you can expect greater transparency going forward. Schools are releasing more and more data, like detailed breakdowns of employment sectors, helping applicants who want public interest work or government roles, which will let you see if a school truly supports those career paths. Finally, we're going to see more scrutiny on outcomes. Because of all the debates about the cost of higher ed, job outcomes will be scrutinized even more. And so this is your chance to align with schools that genuinely care about comprehensive student success. Now, finally, you can expect increased scrutiny around employment outcomes given all the debates about the cost of higher ed. So expect some changes and more granular data in those 509 reports going forward. Now, remember, you have more power in this process than you might think. If you study a school's 509 data, you'll know where you stand and what kind of support you can expect financially, academically, and career-wise. Don't let the US News rankings overshadow the details that truly impact your future. And of course, if you're looking for that extra edge with your LSAT score, check out the links below to book a call with me and my team. That one decision, getting a higher LSAT above the medians, could mean the difference between an average outcome and a life-changing scholarship. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.